What would you think if I said I'd had a bad weekend? I mean, aren't the terms good and bad completely subjective anyway? And what if I told you that I'm a little hungover right now? You'd probably say something like, oh, that's too bad. But is it, really? I mean, if everything else that led up to this point was pretty damn good. But what if I told you that I'd spent the weekend with this elderly curmudgeon who used to be a famous comic artist, and we had gone to a comic convention in order for him to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award, and he'd asked for me personally to chaperone him and be with him. I mean, that sounds like a pretty good weekend, right? But what if, after the trip got underway, it started to become apparent that he had an ulterior motive, and that over the course of this weekend, he would brandish about his concealed weapon. He would verbally and physically abuse anyone and everyone around him, including me, and that he would even be guilty of breaking and entering people's houses in order to confirm some kind of conspiracy that may or may not even be true. Well, you might say, that sounds like a bad weekend. Or you might say, hey man, that sounds like a damn good story. Well, I'm here to say, there is a comic by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips called Bad Weekend. I'm Chris Crescent. This is Talking Tsundoku Blues. Alright, let's take a look at the cover. I love this shade of shocking pink here. You can see Hal Crane. Hal Crane is, I suppose, the main character, but actually he's not the narrator. He's not really the protagonist, but he's such a memorable character. And on the back, Bad Weekend is the ghost of Christmas future that all freelancers fear. I am chilled to my core, said Kelly Sue DeConnick. Brian K. Vaughan says, far and away the best work yet from one of the best teams in the history of comics. Essential reading. Tom King, easily one of the best comics of the 21st century. A story that reflects the crooked soul of our times. And good old Warren Ellis, the woozy, haunted, authentic intensity of Bad Weekend proves conclusively that Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are one of the best creative teams in the world right now. Bad Weekend is dark, funny, and heartbreaking all at the same time. A bold new graphic novel from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, the best-selling creators of Criminal, Fatale, Killer Be Killed, and My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies. I just finished making a video about Captain America, the Ed Brubaker run, and I mentioned this book, Bad Weekend, in that video, and I thought to myself, you know, I should really make a little video just about this book, because this is one of my favorite standalone graphic novels. This guy, Hal Crane, is such a memorable character, and this almost seems like a real story, like a non-fiction story. He almost seems like he could have really existed. Comes with a little postcard there, signed by the creators. End papers show Star King there, which becomes a very important part of the story. We begin with the protagonist, whose name is Jacob. And he gets this message from Mindy from the comic convention. And she says that Hal Crane specifically asked Jacob to make sure that he gets to the ceremony and, you know, kind of keep tabs on him because he's up for this Lifetime Achievement Award and he has a few other events that he has to do. But Jacob's confused because he's like, why me? You know, he had been Hal Crane's assistant 10 years prior, more than 10 years prior, but you know, the relationship ended badly, and he can't think of a reason why Hal Crane would want him specifically to accompany him to get this Lifetime Achievement Award. In my experience, Hal Crane was a collection of bad habits and worse moods, but somewhere under all the smoke and whiskey and sullen glares was one of the most talented artists you ever saw. The kind of guy who could ink with a toothbrush or a broken stick, and the page would still come out perfect, which is why everyone put up with everything else about him. And so Jacob decides to do it. So we begin on Friday. He arrives at the convention and he sees Hal Crane talking with one of the cosplayers. And she's dressed in a Princess Yaz costume. And Princess Yaz is a character from Danny Dagger and the Fantasticals. Danny Dagger and the Fantasticals was a cartoon that Hal Crane had worked on. He did the storyboards, he did all the designs, but since has completely distanced himself from. And so when Jacob sees Hal talking with this woman in a Princess Yaz costume, he gets kind of this warm feeling. But then she slaps him. And I laugh at myself for thinking anything would be different. Jesus. Hey kid, it's good to see you. What the hell was that about? Nothing. I offered her $100 to come up to my room. Jesus, Hal, you can't do stuff like that. I thought she was a prostitute. Why? She's a booth babe, aren't they all? She's not a booth babe, Hal. She's a fan. She probably made that costume herself. Girls come to this con dressed like that and no one's paying them? Yeah. Why? Because it's not 1978 anymore. I love that. And I love these facial expressions, like the way that Sean Phillips draws Hal. This kind of like, he's always got this kind of smirk on his face, and it adds to the kind of the shyster quality, the kind of the crooked ulterior motives, and yeah, the art is just really fantastic. And then we move on to some backstory. The reason why Jacob is driving Hal Crane around is because he was in a terrible car accident that actually killed his mentor, and so he doesn't drive anymore. And so he has Jacob drive him to this seedy bar that's away from the convention, and he starts signing counterfeit animation cells. And these guys are going to pay Hal, and this is how he's basically getting by. So we can see how washed up he is, but even so, he retains his legendary status. They return to the convention, and Mindy finds him, and she's in a rage because Hal has missed his signing panel. And of course she's mad at Jacob more than she's mad at Hal, because Jacob was the one who was supposed to be minding him and making sure that he got to all of his appointments. So she forces him over there and makes sure that he promises to go to the dinner that evening. And then we see some of the awkwardness of him, signing like lunch boxes and signing a little kid's program. Soon enough, Hal's drinking like a fish at the bar where all the comics pros come to drink at these things. And then Hal actually encourages Jacob, even though Jacob has now moved away from comics. He's not into comics anymore. But Hal's like, you were good. Why'd you stop? And then, this is the beginning of the bad weekend here. But then I see him following Rook Morgan into the men's room. And something about that just feels wrong. Rook Morgan is another name you won't know. Rook spent his career doing fill-in issues of books like Man-Thing, Cat Lad, and The Haunted Tank, and was never anyone's favorite artist. Years ago, he gave an interview where he called Hal his mentor, and Hal had ripped that page out of the magazine and set it on fire. No, don't! Tell me right now, you fat bastard. Hal, please, I don't know what you're talking about. Hal, cut it out! Back off, Jesus! This son of a bitch has something of mine. I don't, I swear to God. Bullshit. You took advantage of me when I was sick. I should have never let you into my house. Hal, please, it's not me, I swear to you. Then who? Look, I heard from Lucinda a few weeks back. She was looking to sell some of your pages, okay? Why didn't you call me? She said you gave them to her. And you believe that? Why, because you want to fuck her? Hey, you know what? Screw you, Hal. Up there on your high horse. Like you never stole anyone else's art. I kind of respect Rook's nerve for saying that. Oh, you son of a bitch. But he clearly didn't think it through. Crack! You don't throw fuel on a drunken maniac. Come on, we gotta go now! Hey, I still have a drink. No, you don't. I love that too. I love how Hal's like, wait, he's such a cheap bastard. He still wants to finish his drink after pistol whipping this guy in the face. And so then they just get the hell out of there. And that leads to a series of events that I don't really want to spoil. This is a short book. I mean, you can see it's really thin. Yeah, it doesn't have page numbers, actually, so I'm actually not sure how many pages. But it's so quick. You can read it in no time at all. I read this and I reread it periodically because it's just such a great story, and it has wonderful twists and turns. All of the characters are perfectly developed for being such a short story. Ed Brubaker, fantastic writer. Sean Phillips, a great artist. And Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips often work together. They have so many of these books, these little one-offs. And they've worked on longer projects together as well. You can see in the back here the other books that they've done together. And there are the biographies also in the back. One thing that this book doesn't have is any bonus material. But I didn't really care about that. The story is just so excellent, and like I said, I just read it and reread it. Easily one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. But don't take my word for it. Just stop watching this video. Go out there, find this, go read it right now. And if you do, maybe you'll have a pretty good weekend. I'm Chris Crescent with Talking Tsundoku Blues. See you next time.